Welcome to the Sports Degos with your hosts Sonny and Murph. We advise you to turn down your speakers and turn up your crap filters because it's gonna get loud and messy. Just win, baby. Just win, baby.
If I don't have to do all the crap I did this past Saturday as far as cut back and jump over somebody and stumble, I don't worry about getting caught, period.
On an unbelievable night, swung on, there's a high drive, get way back, and it's 20, consecutive victory for the Oakland Athletics.
And laughed when he's conquered and won.
We got some physical players on our team. That's the way you have to play to win, and that's the way we play.
Get fired up, I ain't playing. I'm telling you, get fired up. Stand up, get out of that chair, moron. It's time for the Degos. That's right, Murph and Sonny from the Dego Dungeon. You got it right here, live.
Welcome once again to the Dego Dungeon. I am your host, Sonny Dego. And in studio, technically, over the interwebs, coming all the way from Tennessee, is my co-host, Murph Dego. MD, how you doing tonight?
Sonny, I am doing fantastic. Couldn't be better. As we mentioned last week, it was my 40th birthday. But I celebrated it in fine fashion. Took 3 nights, 4 days in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada at the Monte Carlo Casino and Resort. Wife and I had a phenomenal time. First trip ever in 10 years of marriage without the kids. And as much as I love our kids, it was nice to get out there and to go do adult activities, cocktails, gambling, seeing some shows. It was an amazing, amazing week. Glad to be back home. But man, it was a lot of fun.
Murph, glad you made it back safe from Sin City. You know, Murph, I've been to Vegas a couple times. I've enjoyed myself there. I went on the rides on top of Stratosphere. I'm not a huge gambler, but I like to play, cards here and there and roulette and stuff like that and craps. What do you do when you're in Vegas? Are you a show guy? Are you a casino guy? You like playing, slots? You like gambling? What do you do when you're in Vegas?
I like to do a little bit of everything. We had 3 shows scheduled while we were out there. We saw the Cirque du Soleil Beatles Love Show, which was absolutely phenomenal. We saw Blue Man Group. It was absolutely phenomenal. And we saw Chris Angel. So we kind of saw a little bit of everything. We saw a magic show, saw Blue Man Group. It's a percussion, comedy show. And then the Beatles it was absolutely, truly amazing. It was one of the greatest shows / concerts I've ever seen. So we had a lot of fun going to the shows, did our fair share of gambling. My wife is not a gambler at all. And in fact, this was her first serious time gambling. And you know what? It's funny. They talk about new blood and beginner's luck. It's absolutely true. She made 7 straight passes on the crap table before we checked out there. This was on our second night there. And then we went over to the roulette wheel. Sonny, she sat down and played our kids' birthdays. She played the dates of the 16th and the 23rd 4 times with $5 on it.
Get out of here, Murph.
Get out of here, $175 a pop.
Get out of here, Murph.
Oh, it was awesome. It was awesome. So, to answer your question, we like to do a little bit of everything. A few cocktails, a little bit of gambling, saw some shows, great food, amazing food in Las Vegas. I mean, there's an amazing restaurant all over, amazing restaurants all over the place. And so we just had a great time. Great time.
Good stuff. Glad you made it back safe. Glad you're back in the Dego Dungeon. You're listening to the Sports Degos. You can find us live every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Pacific Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Mountain Time, and 10 p.m. Central Time. Is that correct, Murph?
Yes, that is correct. It is 10 o'clock here in Middle Tennessee. 75 degrees outside. Very low humidity. Very lovely evening here in the Music City.
Good to see. Good to see, Murph. Good to see you're having good weather out there. I've been stuck in the rain for the past couple days up here.
The
in
heck
Oregon.
you say? Rain in the Pacific Northwest?
I right? I seen a guy wearing Birkenstocks today, too. It's unbelievable. Got a lot to cover tonight. On the website, check us out, thesportsdegos.com. Yesterday, we were blessed with the great mind of Vic Tafer. He's a beat writer for the Raiders in baseball and basketball and MMA from the San Francisco Chronicle. If you haven't checked that out yet, go check it out. It's can be found on the Sports Degos website, thesportsdegos.com. Murph, what'd you take away from that interview with Vic yesterday regarding the Raiders?
Man, Vic has always been such a wealth of information for us. He's been a friend of our show. That's the second time that we've had him on. And, the thing that he really opened my eyes to last time was the culture change in Oakland. And I think that to him continuing that thought of that this is an absolute makeover from top to bottom, and that with the amount of change that's going on, will Mark Davis continue to have the kind of patience that we think he's going to have? Vic mentioned that, Mark Davis got a little testy last year. Is he going to get testy again this year when the Raiders are, post a 4-win season? So I think that's really what I took away from it, was that although Mark says the right things on the front end, that there's going to be plenty of time. Maybe there's another message going on there, at least internally, when the actual losing happens.
Yeah, it's the biggest overhaul in all of sports. And I want to go back to last week when we talked about it, and we're going to get to the Raiders here in a little bit, but we referenced an article by Chris Hansen that talked about this being the biggest rebuild in all of sports history. And Vic definitely kind of backed that up a little bit as well with his interview yesterday. So again, if you haven't heard that interview, check out thesportsdegos.com. Listen to the interview with Vic Tafer. But Murph, like we do every show, what are you drinking?
Sonny, I will tell you. As soon as I get all right, here we go. I got my little thing here. All right. Here we go. Tonight, I'm drinking Third Shift Band of Brewers Amber Lager. It's a gold medal award winner. This beer was created by the Band of Brewers, a group of accomplished brewing professionals whose dedication to brewing doesn't end when the day shift is over. They pour everything they have into the pursuit of new and different beers, the best of which have won gold. This collection of award-winning beers is Third Shift. I saw a commercial last week for this Third Shift, and I thought, oh, that must be like a Miller brand or a Budweiser brand or something. I'm looking all over the box. I can't find anything other than this Band of Brewers, so it lends me to believe that it might be not necessarily a microbrew, but it was certainly a smaller brewery. So anyways, I picked up the Amber Lager. Man, it's good stuff. It's good, much better than what I came in with last week. It's very Samuel Adams-like, but it's lighter. It's lighter in color. It's lighter in body, and it doesn't have that heaviness that a Sammy's can have, especially after a couple. I really, really enjoy it a lot. It's very good. So I highly recommended Third Shift Band of Brewers Amber Lager.
Good beer, Murph. Good beer.
What are you drinking? Are you not going to share?
I was trying to find a sound effect for the beer, and I think I just epically failed. Let me try. No, that won't work either.
Wow.
Here's some sounds of beer pong. No, that won't work either. 80s beer sounds, Murph? Should we go back to 80s beer
Yeah, go
songs?
for it.
Let's see here. 80s beer songs. What does that sound like? 80s beer sounds, I guess.
Wow, this is riveting radio. Our listeners are at the edge of their seats. Sounds like a Erasure or something. Wow.
New Order, True Faith.
Oh, there you go. New Order, yeah. Wow.
Murph, I'm drinking a beer that I have not drank for at least 7 days, Murph. It was a strange week. It was a week where I wasn't able to go to the store. My wife went to the store. She bought some Coronas yesterday, Murph, that I took up to my brother-in-law's birthday party. It was his 30th birthday party, so I had to bring my own beer. But I managed to drink all 6 of the Coronas that I went up there with. And I was planning on having a Corona for tonight's show. So I come back at 3 in the morning. Don't worry, Murph. I had about a 3-hour time from the last beer I drank to driving. So I drove home safely and soberly. However, Murph, today It's about an hour until showtime, and I said, oh my gosh, I don't have any beer to drink for the show. I go to the fridge, I push my way through old spaghetti, I push my way through whatever my wife was cooking 2 days ago, and I pull out my last George Killian's Irish Red. It was so good last week that I decided, I can roll with the Killians again. It won it for me last week, hands down. So, after many years of not drinking it, I'm drinking it 2 weeks in a row on the show. George Killian's Irish Red.
Fine choice. As we mentioned last week, it is certainly a classic. That is a good beer. But being that this is a back-to-back showing, I don't know if I'm willing to concede the title as I did last time. So, guys, if you're out there listening to us, hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, wherever. Send us a message. Let us know what you think. Does Sonny go back-to-back with George Killian's, or does Third Shift, Band of Brewers, Amber Lager, pick up the win this week?
Why do you keep throwing out Third Shift like it's important or something?
Because that's what it's called.
Nah, nobody cares. Second
you could
shift,
call
first
yours
shift.
George Killian's Irish Red.
Week 2.
Sell it.
Second week, George Killian's. There you go. All right, Murph, let's take a quick commercial break. We'll come back. We'll discuss something that's been discussed a while. But, Murph, I want to take a different angle on it. And we'll also come back with the Shut Your Fat Mouth segment as well. You're listening to the Sports Degos. Welcome back to the Sports Degos with Sonny and the Murph. All right, Murph, welcome back in the Dego Dungeon. Listen to the Sports Degos, thesportsdegos.com, on Twitter, at the Sports Degos. Murph, we do have a phone number for this show. Is that correct?
That is correct. We do have a live call-in, the Sports Degos hotline, if you will.
Now, we don't advertise it very much because, we have enough to say. If we started taking calls, we'd be here for, 3 hours every night, let alone the hour and a half, 2 hours we're already on the show and stuff. However, if you do feel so inclined to call into the Sports Degos during the Raiders segment, during any of the news stories we're talking about, or perhaps during the Sad Sack or during the Shut Your Fat Mouth segment, the phone number is 971-270-2007. That number again is 971-270-2007. Murph, earlier this week, kind of this week and the past few weeks, college basketball, right? March Madness. It doesn't get any better than that, right? Like, I don't watch college basketball throughout the year, but I definitely watch March Madness. It's pretty exciting. I think you won the bracket, so congratulations. We'll talk about that a little bit, but
yeah.
The injury to Ware, like, how can we not talk about it? It's been talked about forever, or since it's happened, but it was probably one of the most gruesome injuries I've ever seen, especially when that picture started floating around the internet and stuff, and I'm not sure that picture was real or not. Was that picture real?
Yes, it absolutely was real, and
I was hoping it wasn't.
Yeah, it didn't look it, and it was, man, you hit it right on the head, and this has been often talked about subject this week, but, we'd be remiss if we didn't bring it up. A little bit different spin for us to analyze it is, yes, it was arguably so far one of the most gruesome and severe injuries ever. But was it the most gruesome or severe injury? And that's where we can really look at it, and we really have some room to kind of talk about the subject, is that, there's been a lot of bad injuries. And in doing a little more research on this topic, I've come across a couple that I'd forgotten about or hadn't seen in the past. And, man, I'm telling you, there's been some rough ones, but none more gruesome as far as gore than Kevin Ware. I mean, and I feel not only for him, obviously, but the guys on the bench, if you watch their reaction when that happens, I mean, it's like, seeing guys in a scary movie. I mean, they huddle up together because it was just, it was so shocking when it happened.
Yeah, it was so flukish too, Like when Theismann got hurt, you could kind of see it coming. Who was the guy for? What was the college guy? I know his name at the top of my head. It escaped me right now.
Which one? Willis McGahee?
The most recent. He played for the Gamecocks, I think.
Latimer. Yeah, a lot more.
Yeah, a lot more. His injury was disgusting as well.
That was pretty nasty.
His leg literally just bent, in a way legs shouldn't bend. But this guy's, it was like he just jumped up, something that guys do in a basketball game probably 50 times a game, jumps up, comes down. It wasn't even like he came down on the side of his ankle or anything, He came down flat-footed, and his leg just breaks. But then to see it flopping around, and then to see it right in front of the bench, like that's what gets me. Like it'd be one thing if it was on the other side of the court. And in football, you're a good 25 to 50 yards away from a play at any given time, on the sideline. But in basketball, it was right there, right in front of his bench. And how do you ever get that out of your mind as a college athlete, Especially because it was so flukish. It was just on a jump. So as a college kid, how do you recover to play another game and play just the way you always play,
Well, that's the mental toughness. That's part of it that we, when we talk about athletes, that's one of the things that separates them from, the rest of us is that, there may be, it's not uncommon to be gifted, physically, but it is uncommon to be gifted physically and have the mental ability to be able to persevere through things like that, or, having a good workout ethic or whatever it may be. That's the toughness. I mean, how many times do we see guys in the NFL have major injuries? Teams are huddled together, they're praying together, it's not the Bengals and the Steelers anymore. Now it's, them as a group, and then it's them as a whole. And, but then they have to pick right back up and go out there and start beating the crap out of each other again. I'm reminded of Anquan Boldin, which I don't know if you remember that hit he took in the end zone. I forget who it was from the Jets that lit him up in the end zone and literally broke his face. I mean, and amazingly, he was back, within like 6 weeks. Like an injury that, like, he broke his orbital bone and his jaw was wired shut, and all this stuff. And he came right back. And it's like, if that happened to you or I'd be out. I'd be out for months, and I'd be crying, and you know what I mean? Like, I'd be laid up in bed and, watching Duck Dynasty marathons. You know what? But Don Anquan Boldin, man, he went right back to work. So that's the difference between, a lot of these athletes and then, us normal folk, and, man, I just got to say that, not only the proximity, obviously, to the bench, and then for them to see an injury like that, but then for them to see the bone come sticking out of his leg. It was like 6 inches of bone protruding out through and it just, that image, man, I'm telling you, that one got burned into my brain when I saw that. And I accidentally saw that picture. I wasn't even seeking it. I was just looking around on Twitter and clicked a link to Kevin Ware because he was been trending off and on all week long. And but there it was in bright color. And it about turned my stomach. So I can imagine what those poor guys had to go through that saw it, 6 feet away.
Murph, we just sent a tweet out of the top 10 most gruesome sports injuries. It was an article on AskMen.com. The number 10 is John Terry gets kicked in the face, but that's soccer. So who actually pays attention to soccer? So the number 9 one is
it's like when a tree falls and if there's no one there to hear it. If a guy gets hurt in a soccer game and no one there's to watch it, did it really happen?
Yeah. A soccer game was played, but nobody watched it. So therefore, did the soccer game actually take place? No offense to all of our soccer lovers listening to us. Dave Dravecki, a little close to home. Murph.
Man,
you remember his? 1989. Dave Dravecki made a triumphant return to baseball in 1989, or in August. Returned to Candlestick Park and won his first 4-3 decision. However, a week later, Dravecki's arm snapped in half while throwing a pitch in Montreal. The cancer had returned. They had to amputate his arm years later. Sid Vicious. Remember this one, Murph?
Yeah, I remember. This is one that I had forgotten about. I actually saw this happen live, and then I had forgotten about it. And then, but going back and doing the research for this one, and saw Sid come off of that top rope and land, and it just, as his leg, very similar to like what happened with Kevin Ware, it just snapped. Now there's, they suspect that Kevin Ware might have had a stress fracture, and that's what led to the break. Because like you said, guys are jumping around that same jump 50 times a game in a normal basketball game, so there had to have been something else going on there, and they suspect he had a stress fracture. Same thing with Sid. I imagine there was a weakness there because he didn't come down really strange on it. He just came down and his twig just snapped. I mean, it just went out on him. So, Yeah, that one was pretty brutal.
Yeah, that was bad. He broke his tibia and his fibula, whatever those two things are. Tyrone Protho, Alabama wide receiver, known for two things: credible Hail Mary catch and a freakish injury. Looking here, shortly thereafter, let's see. Protho show what a superlative athlete he could be. 50-yard bomb, hugged the defender in order to pluck the ball off the cornerback's neck when the pass landed. Shortly thereafter, Protho's career was severely damaged in 2005 against Florida. Protho went up for a catch and snapped his fibula and tibia again. I wonder if those are common injuries. I wonder if the most common injuries would be and stuff, you know. Here we go. Theismann.
As far as breaking, I mean, those are lower leg breaks.
Yeah,
so, I mean, those are the ones that are, because your other one, I forget what's the big one, your thigh bone. The femur, that's the biggest bone in your body, and it's a big, thick one, so it's pretty hard to break your femur. It takes like a car accident or something to break that one. But your two lower bones in your leg, and especially in like football, where you got guys landing around the lower part of your leg all the time, not unlike, I think you're going to cover him next, Joe Theismann.
Joe Theismann, we all know that one. We all know that one as maybe the most gruesome. He retired the next year and became one of football's preeminent color commentators. I would have loved for him to choose a different profession. Just saying. Snapped his lower leg. Number 5 on the list, Murph. Napoleon McCallum.
This one I definitely remember.
This was bad. This was real bad, and it was against the Niners. His leg twisted in nearly every gruesome direction imaginable, the thing says. Ruptured artery in his left knee, 3 torn ligaments, extensive nerve damage, and bad. I guess we should have.
And he was pretty good too. That was a sad one. Seeing Napoleon McCallum go down. If you guys remember, he played at the Naval Academy, and he had to finish out his his service commitment at the Naval Academy before he could come in to the league. And so he had a really good rookie year, and then came back. He had a really good rookie, then left to go to the Navy, then came back, I think is the way it happened. And then when he came back, that's just a couple of years later was when he snapped that leg on Monday Night Football. And that was just an absolute gruesome injury. And the worst part about that one was that I'm not watching the video, but I'm trying to remember back. It was like, I remember his leg kind of being up in the air, like isolated on the camera shot. Yes. It's just like flapping around up there.
Number 4, Sean Livingston, played for the Clippers. February 26, 2007 was his injury. Drove to the basket, missed the layup, landed on his left knee. His knee buckled and snapped laterally. Nothing more to say on that one.
No.
Number 3, Willis McGahee. Number 3 is McGahee. Let's see. What does it say here? His knee stopped. Let's see. Defender's forearm came flying into the picture at knee level. As McGahee's body continued, his knee stopped. 3 of his ligaments were torn. Although he came back and played, and he was pretty productive in the NFL the first 4 years and stuff. He's pretty explosive.
It was. It cost him, a few draft positions, obviously. But yeah, McGahee was going to be a much, much higher pick before this injury. But yeah, that one was pretty rough, and especially to do it in the Fiesta Bowl. That's just, man, that was tough.
So here's one, Murph, that you may want to get your bag out in case you want to puke. Alan Ray, the number 2 most gruesome, 2006 Big East tournament. And again, we posted a link on the Sports Degos Twitter, at the Sports Degos. We posted a link, top 10 most gruesome injuries, askmen.com. We talk about riveting stuff on this show. Yeah, we talk about riveting stuff. We're going to give our review of Saw and all the Saw movies here next. Alan Ray, star point guard, Villanova, scrambling after a loose ball. As he was lowering his head, an opponent's finger moved up in pursuit of the ball and dug Ray's eye slightly out of its socket, allowing his eyelid to slide in behind the eyeball. I don't think there's anything more I want to say about that one, Murph.
No, when you're popping an eyeball out of its socket, that's pretty rough. That's just, that's nasty.
Now, here's one, Murph, that maybe only our Canadian listeners might remember.
I remember this one. I do remember this one.
Clint
Malarchuk.
Malarchuk, was that his name? Probably the most gruesome in history. March 22nd.
This was the scariest. This was the scariest.
I'd say so. March 22nd, 1989. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say,
Why you call me a goat head?
he's a goalie, and in the game, the skater came in and slit his jugular with his skate. And I didn't see this one live, but I do remember it happening. And this was one that's when you slice your jugular, that could kill you. And he was saved, his life was saved by trainers. And we've seen have been around for boxers that have unfortunately lost their lives. But rarely, outside of boxing, you don't see a loss of life in a sporting event, and this is what was going to happen without the team reacting with the speed and the effectiveness that they did. When you were watching this highlight and when you watch it now, this guy was going to die, and that's I don't think anybody was worried about Kevin Ware losing his life despite the gruesomeness of the injury and all that. And there's, Mark Mariani had a really nasty leg break this last year. I mean, there's a lot of players that have nasty leg breaks, but to have your throat sliced, and to slice your jugular vein, that's scary. And there was just blood everywhere. And it was, that might be it. Now, after running down this list and thinking about it, despite how gruesome it was seeing Kevin Ware's bone sticking out of his leg, I got to say, man, when all that blood was pouring out of that goalie's neck out there on the ice, that's fear factor, that's gruesome, that's severity. That might be all the things wrapped up into one. And I got to say, that's going to be my pick for the most gruesome sports injury ever.
Where do you put Ware on that list?
I got to say he's a strong second. He's
number two?
He's definitely number two. He's definitely number two. And again, just because of the graphicness of it. When you look at, I'm not going to get into the details of it. You guys can go look at it if you want to see. But there you can see the details of the man's anatomy, of the bone, and it's just awful. It was awful. So granted, you didn't see a picture of Malarchuk's throat sliced open, but the amount of blood, I got to say, was plenty for me. And I'm going to throw in one honorable mention, and we hadn't talked about it even before the show, and I kind of forgot about it until just a few minutes ago. Johnny Knox from the Chicago Bears, who I believe is now retired out of football. I think he tried to make a comeback and just couldn't do it. When you see Johnny Knox, he's going in, it's I want to say they're within the 5-yard line, and he's going in and he gets bent backwards, literally gets folded in half. And when you watch the footage of that, it's so disturbing because you're just watching a man get folded in half the complete wrong way. And it looks kind of like the Ware thing. It's like, that looks like it should be fake, because seeing somebody get creased in half that way it's awful. It's just, that's a really bad one too. Now, it doesn't have the blood and things that some of these other, but just as far as your body going the wrong way, and especially since it was his back, it wasn't like a leg twisted out or an arm or whatever. It's your back, it's your spine getting laid out in half. So that was pretty bad. I'm going to say that's going to be my third.
Murph, this just in. Let's transition here. Michigan 61, Syracuse 56. The Big Blue going to the big dance. They've made the preliminary dances, but now they're going to the final dance. Michigan versus Louisville, Murph. Who you got?
I like Michigan. I'm going to take Michigan in that matchup. And, that's what a fun team they are. It's nice to see Michigan back being successful after, a long time. It's been, 20 years. And, the Fab Four, listen to me, I'm on Beatles time still. The Fab Five, back in the day with Juwan Howard and Chris Webber and those guys, they brought a different life to a college basketball program, something that we hadn't seen at the time. It was, back then it was Dean Smith and, these guys in these staunch programs. And, in the Fab Five, man, there was so much flair and so much fun to their game. And if you watch the 30 for 30 that they did on the Fab Five is awesome. It's awesome. So I've always been fond of those Michigan teams. But since then, Steve Fisher's long departed as coach, and, Michigan hasn't been that good. So to now see them back in the mix, playing in the championship game, I think it's pretty cool seeing those bright maize uniforms out there. And then the other thing I think that's fun about this team is that, obviously we're big time. Well, you used to be a big time Warrior fan. I still am. Seeing Tim Hardaway's son out there playing, I think is pretty cool. And then playing with Glenn Robinson III. How cool is that? You got a couple of legacy guys whose dad's had, success in college, but more so in the NBA. So that makes it a lot of fun. There's a cool dynamic to this team, much, in the ways that the Fab Five had a unique dynamic. I think this team does too. So they kind of harken back to one another, and it's good stuff. So I'm rooting for Michigan.
I know it's could be cliche. I gotta root for Louisville after the Ware injury and after what those kids had to go through. How can you root against them?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know. Murph, as always, there's somebody who is talking too much during the week, and on this show, we tell them to shut their fat mouth.
Is this on? Hey! Is this on? Hey, shut your fat mouth! I'm talking here.
Who do we got this week, Murph?
We don't have to stray far from the neighborhood on this one. There was a player released this week from Oakland. That player is Rolando McClain. We all kind of knew this was coming.
Murph, before you go any further, Reggie McKenzie, good job. This was the move we were waiting for, right? This was the move.
You know what's awesome about this, too, and I know we're going to talk about this more when we get to the Raiders, but, dude, he went gangster on McClain, dude. Not only did he release him, he did designate him for the June 1st cut.
Exactly.
So the Raiders sucked up all of his dead money in one fell swoop. Dude, that was that's an Al Davis move. That's the kind of stuff that Al Davis used to do to guys to send messages. I love the fact that Reggie did that. It also lends me to believe that Mark Davis will have an understanding that this team will take time to rebuild and just said, you know what? Just take it all up here on the front end. Just go ahead and do it and get it out of the way. So, but all that said, Rolando McClain, thankfully, was released after an absolute underwhelming career in silver and black, which is something that, unfortunately, we are no stranger to with high draft picks. This is another first-round pick that was, I don't know if we're going to go with bust status on him, but for what the Raiders needed, he was a bust. We needed somebody that could get in there and help us defend in the running, which the Raiders have had an awful run game for so long, and that's what we were looking to bring him. And we were looking to bring in somebody, I'm not going to compare him to Patrick Willis, but somebody that had that lateral speed, somebody that could maintain a lane and could stop the run, somebody that could get to the corner. This guy did none of that. He couldn't maintain his own lane. Despite his speed and athleticism, he was majorly outperformed by Omar Gaither last year, who, as a KG-savvy veteran, knew that all you got to do is have your body in the right position and you'll be in a better position to make plays. If Rolando McClain had half the wits of a guy like Omar Gaither in the body that he has, McClain could be one of the best players in the league. But again, to go back to what we were talking about earlier, it's not just about your body and your speed and your size. It's you got to have it upstairs too, and if you don't have it upstairs, you're not going to make it. And in the highest levels of competition, which the NFL absolutely, obviously is. And so, anyways, goodbye, Rolando McClain. He's gone. We're thankful for it. I'd love to see him end up a Jet. Boy, what a sweet spot for him. But here's why he's going to get shut your fat mouth from this co-host. He came out with a statement this week saying, and I quote, "I'd like to thank the Raiders for giving me an opportunity to play in the NFL. I'm disappointed that it hadn't worked out better, but I'm very excited and thankful. I will miss my teammates and wish them and the Raiders organization good luck going forward." Rolando McClain, shut your fat pie hole, you idiot. It was only a few months ago that you came out with another statement on your own Facebook page that wasn't doctored up by lawyers, that wasn't, advised by agents. When you were at your core, when you let out your true feelings, this is what you said. "Officially no longer an Oakland Raider. Well, technically I am, but I'm mentally done. Just waiting on my papers." You big fat idiot. I'm so glad you're gone. Shut your fat mouth, Rolando McClain. You just made me spit on my monitor.
Is this on? Hey! Is this on? Hey, shut your fat mouth! I'm talking here!
Murph, we all know it to be true, and I love Twitter for the simple aspect that sometimes you actually hear what players really think. Facebook, the same way. We all know this statement he released. I'd like to thank the Raiders for giving me an opportunity to play in the NFL. I'm disappointed that it hasn't worked out better, but I'm very excited and thankful for the Raiders to allow me to get a fresh start. Yeah, shut up. We all know that's doctored. That's more written for you than a speech for the president. You know what I'm saying? His true feelings came out on Facebook. His true feelings were shown when this guy would not even put forth an effort playing freaking football. You'd think a guy with McLean in his last name would know how to cover a lane, but this guy had absolutely no highlights, dude. He had 2 highlights. One, he got a flag for when he freaking body slammed Danny Amendola, whatever his name is. Remember that? When he freaking was tackling him, when he body slams him. Oh, that's great, McLean. Pick on a guy who weighs 75 pounds less than you. Oh, but not to be outdone with this huge hit against Darren Sproles. Oh, he kicked the crap out of him. But again, he's 75 pounds less than him. The guy was junk. Bust, Murph. Bust. And on that note, we'll be back, the Sports Degos, with more talk on the Raiders. Welcome back to the Sports Degos, thesportsdegos.com, at the Sports Degos on Twitter. Murph, there are a few things that I like to discuss more in life than my beloved Oakland Raiders, Murph. I was a baby in the womb watching games with my father. When I think of the Raiders, it's almost like I am more of a Raider than I am Italian, Murph. It just goes back to the essence of who I am. And Murph, for many years, my love affair was hurting because there was no momentum in Oakland, Murph. We kept getting these empty promises, these Jeff Hostetlers and Javon Walkers and Kerry Collins and Jamarcus Russells and even to the Hayward Bays and the Slolando McClains of the world, Murph. But now I have hope. I feel like there is something in the air in Oakland, California. And I still refer to it as Oakland Coliseum, but you can call it O.co if you want to.
Nah, it's the Oakland Alameda County
Oakland
Coliseum.
Murph, there's change in the wind. There is a spring wind flowing through Oakland, Murph, to the tune of $69 million.
Come on.
I keep thinking of Reggie McKenzie. It's kind of like Dr. Evil in Austin Powers. You know, when he's sitting there with his finger on his mouth and stuff, you know, McKenzie's going, $69 million. They got $69 freaking million in cap room next year. Are you kidding me? Is that even possible to field a team having that much dead money kicking it there, that's just unbelievable.
It absolutely is unbelievable. We're looking at a story from Rant Sports, and we'll throw up a link to it. But this was the benefit of cutting all of those players, and it's hard to put an exact figure on it. I've heard anywhere from 50 million up to 69 million, estimated, with 69 being the most recent prediction. So no reason to expect that it's not close to that. And, the Raiders aren't going to go into a big, giant free agency spree. That they're still going to build this team the Packer way, the Ted Thompson way that Reggie McKenzie, learned under. So I don't expect that the Raiders are going to go out next year and start signing 1,000 guys. But what this will do is that this will give them the opportunity to sign guys that are in-house that they already like to long-term deals, to a guy like Tracy Porter, which I got to imagine for him to take a 1-year deal in Oakland, that there's the intent to sign him to a long-year deal when it comes out to the end of the season, when the Raiders do have the room. So they'll have the ability to sign a guy like that to a long-term deal. There'll be the ability to sign these guys that have gone through these restructures. Anybody that's coming up for contract, they'll have a chance to sign. So they'll have a chance to do all that, and then will they bring in one or two guys? The Packers certainly have done that. Obviously, Reggie White being the biggest example of that. But then even to rewind the clock back not that far and look at Charles Woodson. They will bring in free agents now and then if it makes sense to fit a piece of the puzzle. So I got to think that Reggie will take a shot at a couple of guys. Now, think about if the Raiders had $69 million to play with this year. How many more players would they have been in the running for? How many other high-profile guys would be out there that the Raiders might have had a shot at? And so that's the way that we got to look at this. And the lumps are going to happen. It's going to be a tough year again. Absorbing all that dead money like we just got done talking about with Rolando McClain. It all makes sense. And it's something else Vic brought up. It's converse to the way that the league is run now. Everybody's a win now kind of a program. Everybody's trying to get those one or two pieces that's going to put them over the top. Everyone's trying to make that move for a guy like RG3 to turn the Washington Redskins around, or like Russell Wilson did for the Seahawks. Or everyone's looking for that one piece to turn them around. The Raiders are going completely counter against all that type of a mentality when it comes to building this football team, and I love it. The Raiders are counterculture, man. That's what we stand for. We go against the grain. We swim upstream, man. We don't do what everybody else is doing. That's Al Davis, man. He's not going to follow suit. Well, now look, Reggie, being the conservative guy, being the guy that is cutting all these contracts, the guy that is looking to build long-term, that's now the alternative way to manage a football team. I love it. What's more Raider than that?
Murph, Twitter's an interesting place. You got a lot of guys on there cheering for the same squad, and yet they get in these Twitter arguments, and I just sit back and just kind of laugh, because it's like at the end of the day, we're just fans. We all want the same thing. We all argue about how we get that thing, though. One of the comments that I see routinely is Al Davis had 2 8-8 teams. And then Reggie McKenzie and Dennis Allen came in and, for lack of a better word, effed it all up and had a 4-12 team. And sure, if you're looking at numbers and wins, that argument would hold up. But I think guys are missing a whole lot of behind the scenes going on there. You know what I'm saying? McFadden injury, the trade for Palmer, McLean quitting on us. Palmer essentially quitting on us. There's a whole lot of stuff underneath the 8-8, 8-8, and then the 4-12. And to be honest, if you're a guy out there toting an 8-8 season, then you're missing the mark too. Because if 8-8's your happy your goal, then you need to learn something about football. 8-8 don't cut it either. 2 8-8 seasons, that demands an overhaul in my mind. That's barely 500. I think one of those was when we swept the AFC West, but then only won 2 more games out that, So while there was progress, we lost Campbell, Hugh Jackson makes that knee-jerk reaction and pretty much, screws us for draft picks and for the future. Hugh Davis was of the mindset, win now, win now. Look where that got us. That got us Palmer, his contract, and lost the draft picks, and ultimately got that egomaniac kicked out of the Raiders organization, which he actually went back to Cincinnati. So who's the real dummy in all this, huh, Murph? Hugh Jackson makes a trade that only benefits the Bengals, and he winds up back with the Bengals. I'll let you decipher that one. But Murph, there is change in the air. There is something to be hopeful for. This guy has pretty much said, F everybody. I don't care what kind of criticism I'm going to get. I'm already ugly as sin. What more can you say about me? And I'm going to clear up this roster to set us up for future success. Whether you want to hang on or not for 2 or 3 years is up to you. But if you are a Raider fan, why wouldn't you hang on, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, it's when you break it down, okay, say the Raiders, as Vic, said, look, 4-12 is about all we're going to really expect out of this team for this year, okay? So that's going to qualify us for another top 3 pick with a guy like Jadeveon Clowney coming out, okay? So puts us in the running for a super high impact, probably an all-world type player that he's going to be. And not to mention who else will come out next year in the draft. So my point being is this. So the Raiders say struggle next year. We come out of this with the top 3 draft pick, again, for the 2014 draft. They then have $69 million, okay? So now all these people that have complained about Reggie getting rid of these guys and have complained about the loss of Michael Huff, Hayward Bay, Tommy Kelly, Cameron Wembley last year, Stanford Route, whatever. All the players that have been gone, okay? So now think of this. The Raiders now have 2 years of high-profile draft picks, $69 million to spend on, I don't know, how's Victor Cruz sound as your number 1 wideout starting opposite Denarius Moore and Jacoby Ford in the slot? Or how about Jeremy Maclin? That sounds pretty sweet to me. How about Jimmy Graham as your starting tight end, Raider Nation? Was that worth it? Heck yeah, that was worth it. What about Clay Matthews and Brian Cushing on the same linebacking core? You know what I mean? What about Charles Tillman, who's an absolute turnover machine, as the other cornerback starting opposite of Tracy Porter? These are the kind of options that the Raiders are going to have now. And this, was it worth getting rid of these other guys that, while they may have been fan favorites because they were a very, very small bright spot in a turd of play every Sunday? Yes, it was going to be worth it. It's going to be worth sucking last year. It's going to be worth sucking this year, because next year, man, that's when it's all going to come together. It's truly going to be a 3-year plan. And I mean, listen to some of those names. I mean, what if we look at the guys on the line? You guys like Alex Mack, Michael Orr is out there. MJD is out there. What if we get another injury-riddled year with Darren McFadden? Maybe it's time to cut ties with him and you bring in Maurice Jones-Drew, a California guy who'd want to play close to home, just like Clay Matthews would. I mean, those are the kind of things that are out there. Yes, this is absolutely going to be worth it. I'm telling you, man, things are going to be good in Raider Nation over these next couple of years. We just got to deal with the down for one more.
Murph, it's kind of a good thing, because it's easy to follow a team when they're good, right? It's easy to be like, oh, man, yeah, I've always been a Niner fan. Colin Kaepernick, he's amazing stuff, Well, who was the quarterback before Colin Kaepernick? Who was that guy again? You know what I'm saying? You got these bandwagon fans in sports. They drive me crazy. I've worn Raider gear ever since I was 2 years old, probably even younger. I won't stop wearing Raider gear. You know what I'm saying? Whether they're good, bad, whatever, I'm a Raiders fan. Times like this, you kind of decide. You kind of weed out who the fans are and who the fans aren't. Now, of course, I would love for everybody to be a Raiders fan, but if you're fake and phony, get out, man. If you're here to just cause drama, if you don't know what you're talking about, don't root for my team, please. You know what I'm saying? One of the recent signings, Murph, Tracy Porter. 1-year contract, I believe, with the Raiders. A lot of guys saying, he's not that good. He's a little old. He's not a starter, yada, yada, yada. But this guy, he's had a pretty good career. He won a Super Bowl. He's been there. And I think there's a lot to say about a guy who's been there being in your locker room. Now, did it work with Seymour very well? Who knows? How's it going to work with Porter? Our cornerbacks, historically looked at as leaders. Not so much, but again, he's been there.
Yeah, and Nnamdi
was, yeah. With our cornerbacks, with how young they are, how important do you think this Porter get is?
I think it's huge. And, anybody that criticizes him for being old, and I've heard that along with you, it's silly. The guy's 26 years old. Come on, man. He's got 5-6 years of prime football left still to play. He's in his sixth season, but when you come into the league and you're 20, there's plenty of room for him. He most famously picked off Peyton Manning in that Super Bowl to seal up the win for the New Orleans Saints, and so I'm gonna enjoy watching him play against Peyton twice a year. I think that it's a great move. He's fast. He's a very fast and physical guy, much in line with the history of what the Raiders have done at corner. But does he get burned? Yes. But so does Nnamdi. I'm curious to hear what his burn rate is. I don't know that. I probably should have had that up before we started tonight. If somebody knows that, tweet it out to us. There's a burn rate that's out there now. If you look at Stanford Route's burn rate was awful. You know what I mean? It's how many times do these guys get hit for 35-yard plays or more? I think Porter's susceptible to that occasionally. But again, I got into a little bit of a Twitter debate with one of our followers this over the past couple of weeks, and he said, Tracy Porter's not an elite corner. He's not he's not as good enough to be a number one. And my question back to him was, as compared to what? Yeah. As compared to who? Because outside of Nnamdi Asomugha, we haven't had a guy in silver and black since Charles Woodson left. So to bring in a guy of the caliber and the talent of Tracy Porter, I think this is awesome. This is the best thing that's happened to this secondary in a long time. So we should be thankful for it, and we should just hope that, hope he has a good year, and then hope that him signing a long-term contract after this offseason, or after the next season, that's part of the plan. Because certainly, if we do bring in a guy there's going to be a bunch of free agents that keep Talib, and there's going to be a bunch of guys. So if we're able to bring in another guy and Porter then moves to the second corner, I think that's great. I think it's great.
Here's I'll post the article up on Twitter here. Porter, 26, had a burn rate of 65.8% last season, giving up 25 completions on 38 targets for 416 yards and 4 touchdowns in 6 games and 4 starts. He also had 1 interception, a 43-yard pick 6 with 16 passes defended and 6 tackles. Using the logic from Anchorman, every time he intercepts it, he takes it back to the house. 60% of the time, he works 100% of the time, Murph. He had a concussion and a seizure early season. And, the thing that I'm most optimistic about, did I say that right? Optimistic, whatever.
Yeah.
You got Nick Roach, you got Burnett, you got Porter. You got these guys who are looking to make a name for themselves.
Good point.
Along with Reggie McKenzie, along with Dennis Allen, and along with the Raiders as a whole. The Raiders in the black hole don't have a very good name right now in the sports world. And so we're bringing in guys who are hungry, for a lack of a better term. We're bringing in guys who have something to prove. And isn't that better than bringing in these egotistical maniacs? You could even say that Russell came in so highly touted from college. What did he have to prove? He didn't need to prove anything because Davis threw such a huge contract out there to him. McClain, highly touted out of Alabama. What did he have to prove? He came in already, getting praised. But now we're bringing in guys who need to make a name for themselves, whether it's because they've just been lost in the depth chart or injuries. These guys are hungry. We're bringing in hungry guys, and hungry guys always play better, or they have a different drive than the superstars sometimes,
Yeah, I agree with you to a certain extent, but there also is the other side of the coin, and that's that Shante Spencer and Ron Bartell were hungry last year too. Granted there was some injuries that happened there, and that's what prevented those guys to, maybe getting to their fullest potential. But even when we saw Ron Bartell playing as healthy as that, well, at least from what we understand, he was healthy. He was pretty bad. So, I think that at a certain point that there is a talent level there that has to be maintained in order to have success in the NFL. Now, the good news is in relation to Tracy Porter is that we've seen that. Nobody had ever accused Ron Bartell of Shante Spencer of being, lockdown corners or, being, faces of the secondary. But Tracy Porter was. I mean, Tracy Porter, in his time in New Orleans, I mean, he had some pretty good years there. Even look at 2009. I mean, he had 4 picks that year. I mean, so, that's in 2 forced fumbles. So, I mean, that's what you want. That's a dream for a Raider cornerback. 4 picks and 2 forced fumbles. Are you kidding? It's like that's more production that we've gotten out of the entire secondary at years. So I think that he's going to be a great addition to the team. I look forward to seeing what else the Raiders do. If they do trade down out of that number 1, I keep saying that. If they trade down out of the number 3 spot in the first round, do they pick up, D. Milliner to fill in on the other side? Is he going to be the guy? Like, what are the Raiders going to do in the draft? Is there a guy that they see that they want, to play corner? Do they draft Tyrann Mathieu? Do they draft the Honey Badger to play the slot, to come in as your nickel corner? I mean, that's, if you got a guy like Porter and then you to go along with, I don't know, whoever else they decide. I don't think that second starting corner is on the team yet, unless it could maybe be like Tywan Jones for some reason if he comes out of nowhere. But outside of that, I don't think that second corner is there. But can you imagine Honey Badger as the third? Like, Reggie McKenzie's all about value. Well, this was a guy that was a defensive, was it a Butkus Award, whatever it was that he won at LSU before he got in trouble with, some weed issues. But outside of that, I mean, this guy was one of the best defensive players in college football. If the Raiders can get him for a 3rd-round pick, or if they trade down, get a later first round and then get a second rounder and pick him up, early in the second. I mean, there's tons of possibilities going on here that Reggie could, take advantage of. And I look forward to it, man. I think we are in good shape. And the criticism of him and the decisions that have been made, I think they're premature, because until you see what fruit this is going to bear, it's unfair to judge it.
Now, it could also be unfair to praise him too early on. What I'm praising, and by no means do I think, we're guaranteed to have success in 2 years and we're guaranteed to win the Super Bowl in 5. I'm just happy that something different is happening versus the last 10 years. This has never happened in the history of the Raider organization. And he's going to get a lot of flack for it. But I got to put my trust in him that he's an NFL executive. He knows it more than I do, and he knows it more than probably any of us on Twitter do. I got to put my trust in him that he's doing the right thing. I'm just happy that there's something to actually have hope in, that we're actually seeing a change going on. What do the Raiders do in the draft? Do they trade down? As Vic said, and I quote, there's not a lot of sexy draft picks at the top. Do they take a lineman? Do they take a defensive lineman, an offensive lineman? There's really no quarterbacks in the draft. Is Flynn a stopgap, or is he our guy because he was Reggie's guy? That's all, here and there. One thing, though, that's pretty interesting, Murph. We picked up Flynn. Now, Murph, let's go back in history here. I'm going to give you some trivia. Do you know where Flynn went to college?
I do. He is an LSU product.
Okay. 1 for 1. Do you know where Jawalrus, Jabustis, whatever you want to call him, do you know where Jamarcus Russell went to college?
Jabustis Fatback played at Louisiana State University.
Huh. Interesting. Now, Murph, did Flynn and Russell's careers, did they overlap? Were they there together?
They intersected, as a matter of fact, and I'll even take it one further. Matt Flynn, at one point in his LSU career, was Jamarcus Russell's backup quarterback.
So you're telling me the Raiders just traded for Jamarcus Russell's backup?
Yes. That is absolutely correct. But unlike Jamarcus, there was no questionable work ethic with Matt Flynn. And after Jamarcus left, after that game against Notre Dame and Brady Quinn in 2006, in 2007, Matt Flynn won a national championship with Louisiana State University. So much like Tracy Porter, as you mentioned, getting a guy in that's been to the highest levels of competition and been successful there. Now they have a quarterback that knows what it's like to win a national championship. Of course,
it's interesting.
Wando McClain, but go figure.
It's always interesting how it goes. And Flynn, we asked Vic, is he a stopgap or is he the future? And Vic seemed to think he was more of a stopgap. Do you have much hope for Flynn? Earlier in the week, we tweeted out one of those retweet favorite type things, and I think more guys thought that Flynn's going to be the starter versus Pryor. Pryor has that ball that just hangs in the air too much. Flynn, he's played a little more in the NFL than Pryor has and stuff, and Pryor might come in for some option stuff at the goal line, some trickery stuff, but he's probably not going to be starting. So Flynn's the starter. For how long? This year? Is this his show me or you're gone year, because there'll be some better quarterbacks coming up in the draft next year. Stopgap or long-term, do you think, with Flynn?
Here's all I need to know about Matt Flynn. And, people can bring up his arm strength, which to me, I don't know why it's so questionable, because when you watch any of his tape in his time spent in Green Bay, and especially in that one game where he threw 6 touchdown passes or whatever, it doesn't look like the guy can't make throws to me. And arm strength is often misunderstood in the world of the NFL, that we a lot of times think of arm strength as how far you can throw it down the field. Can you throw it 70 yards? But that's not where your arm strength comes into play. Your arm strength comes into play on really shorter or more intermediate routes where you're trying to zip it in there. You're trying to it's about the timing of it. That's where the strength comes in, is that how fast can you fire it in there on a 7-yard slant? That's where the arm strength comes into play. It's not how far you can chuck it downfield. Well, when I watch Matt Flynn's tape, I don't see anything that makes me question his arm strength. I don't see him not being able to make any throws, where that is a question with Terrell Pryor. We don't see him fire the ball in there. We see those floating passes. And in the NFL, we know there's nothing worse than a late, floating throw. I mean, that's just, that's just fodder for DBs, especially safeties, like Ed Reed. So I don't question the guy's arm strength any bit whatsoever. I think he can make all the throws. Now, here's where I lock in, though, on Matt Flynn. Would you agree that Pete Carroll is a pretty good assessor of quarterbacks?
Yeah, you got to think. I mean, he made the right move with Russell Wilson, and at USC, you can't argue with his success down there. Now, whether Matt Leinart and those guys transition well to the NFL is another story, but in college, he was definitely a pretty good assessor of talent, and he definitely made the right move. Well, we can only assume, unless Matt Flynn would have won the Super Bowl for the Seahawks, that Russell Wilson was definitely the right move up there in Seattle. So, yes.
Absolutely, and I think that what you said is key, is that he's an excellent evaluator of talent at the quarterback position, that despite what your feelings are of Pete Carroll, and I know you're not fond of him because you're a big, Oregon State guy, and USC was,
Although we always beat USC up here in Oregon State. So
but they won the national championships, so, but any criticism of Pete Carroll, you got to respect his evaluation of talent at the quarterback position, and none more so than this year when, as you mentioned, Russell Wilson was named the starter and it turned that team around. Well, let's go back to last offseason. Pete Carroll brought in Matt Flynn to be his starting quarterback. He didn't know that he was going to get what he got out of Russell Wilson with the third-round pick. I don't think anybody thought they were going to get that kind of productivity out of that player. Matt Flynn was going to be a starter for the Seattle Seahawks. So if a guy like Pete Carroll can trust Matt Flynn to lead his football team, it's good enough for me. He knows a heck of a lot more about quarterbacking than I ever will. So, yeah, I don't think we have any worries having Matt Flynn being the starting quarterback for the, and then even to go even further than that, what kind of talent evaluators are in Green Bay? The people that drafted him. There's been a couple of good quarterbacks that have come out of Green Bay here lately, huh?
Yeah, just a few, but one of them had a problem showing ladies his junk. All right, Murph, we're going to come back. We're going to look at Bubba's Hover marketing scheme and a couple of Degos that deserve some recognition. You're listening to the Sports Degos.
Hey, big boy, who they listening to?
Sports Degos.
With who?
The Murph.
And?
Sonny.
Sonny? Is that your big hairy cousin?
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Sports Degos with Sonny and the Murph. All right, Murph, welcome back to Sports Degos, to sportsdegos.com, on Twitter at the Sports Degos. Murph, you're a big fan of Bubba Watson. What's he been doing recently that's got you all worked up?
Well, I got duped, Sonny, and often and unfortunately, we as the general public get duped by advertisers, by marketing departments. And, when I log into my computer every day, I have a little YouTube widget that comes up, and it has the YouTube's most viewed videos. And there's always some pretty funny stuff. Sometimes there's some controversial stuff, but I like it because it kind of keeps me in tune with, what's everybody watching? What's everybody into? In recent months, it's been dominated by the Harlem Shake. It's had, a lot of different things that have dominated the most viewed. But for about 4 days in a row, there's been one called Bubba's Hover. It's got 5.9 million views at this point, and it is my guy, Bubba Watson. And it is pretty cool. And in watching it, it opens up with a view of a golf cart rolling along the cart path. And as it pans out, you hear this, and here comes this hovercraft flying by. And I just posted up, I just tweeted it out there for you guys to check out. This hovercraft goes flying by the golf cart, and the hovercraft is on the fairway, and it's dressed up like a golf cart. And then I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. And so then as you watch the video, it goes into further detail about how this is kind of the brainchild of Bubba Watson, and about how it has so much lesser of a footprint on the golf courses. And so therefore, not doing any of the kind of damage that a golf cart would do, and about how they're so much more efficient and green and all this really cool, innovative stuff that, when you think about it, it's like, wow, that'd be pretty neat. It shows him he's like, why instead of getting in a golf cart and going around a water hazard, when we can just zip right across it? And there's footage of them zipping across the water hazards. It was really cool. I'm like, man, this is awesome stuff. Well, then I, digging around a little bit, as I tend to do a little more research, I came across an article in Bloomberg Business Week. The real story behind Bubba Watson's hovercraft. I'm going to read this to you here briefly. On April 2nd, eyewear and apparel maker Oakley posted a YouTube video titled Bubba's Hover that shows last year's Masters champion Bubba Watson zipping around a golf course in a hovercraft. It takes you everywhere you want to go, Watson says of his upgrade from the standard four-wheel golf cart. The video is real, or at least that's really Watson zipping around the water hazard. What has later come out, this is all a stunt. This is all a marketing ploy. This is all Oakley putting this thing out there. Bubba Watson was not innovating anything. This is a commercial. This was dreamed up by advertising executives and put out there to market Oakley freaking sunglasses. I'll never own a pair of Oakleys. Don't intend to ever own a pair of Oakleys. And I feel like a knucklehead because I got duped by Oakley sunglasses that this was a real thing. And it sounded pretty cool. If they'd have in the beginning put that out there, much like Pepsi did with the Jeff Gordon test drive, and I don't know if you saw that or not, but that was a setup as well. But it was kind of understood that was a setup. This wasn't. This was put out there like it was a Discovery Channel piece about how they were going to revolutionize the freaking golf cart. And I was amazed by it. I'm like, this is pretty cool. I don't even love golf all that much. I like to watch it. I don't like to play it. And I don't really, when I watch it, I only like to watch the major. So hook, line, and sinker, and Oakley can shut their fat mouth along with Rolando McClain this week.
Now, Murph, you shouldn't be angry. I think it's a phenomenal bit, if you will. It's much like, who was that actor who for a year pretended he was a rapper and stuff like that. What was the freaking guy's name? Joaquin Phoenix, right?
Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, it's a bit, you know? And you got to think.
But I didn't know it was a bit.
But that's the best part about it. I mean,
no, I feel stupid.
Well,
I get stupid of the
week. You should be used to that. You've been stupid your whole life.
Hey.
But, you know, this is pretty funny. I mean, this is right in line with Golf Boys 2.0, right? This is right in line with that style, this new, fresh, something that golf has never been before, right? I mean, Tiger Woods was carrying golf for a while, and then he had his, little issues, right? You know, hey, would you please delete your voicemail on my wife found out and all that stuff, right? So he kind of brought on a lot of bad mojo to golf, and now these guys are kind of re-emerging golf in a whole new sense. Tiger's still there, but he's almost not a thing of the past. You always root for him, but I love it, man. It's funny. Good stuff. I want to be duped. It's like, you got me. Good joke, right? I mean, if somebody, makes a good joke, you got to give them props, Ha
ha.
Now, Murph, here's the real question. Back in the day, you never had that famous pair of Oakleys where they kind of looked like a trapezoid and the arms on the side looked like a lightning bolt. You never had a pair of Oakleys?
Oh, heck no.
Never?
You know what? I really haven't. I've never owned a pair of Oakleys. I've always been a Ray-Ban guy. Okay. When I was it's no mystery. I'm 40 years old. So when I was a kid, it was the Wayfarers, man. It was Tom Cruise Risky Business, the Ray-Bans, man. That was the cool sunglasses. Varnays were kind of a thing for a little bit, but it was Ray-Bans, and and then they went out of style for 20 years, and then now they're back again. So I'm tickled when I'm at the mall or whatever, and I see high school kids and they're wearing Ray-Bans, man. I love it because I've always been more of a Ray-Ban guy. No Oakleys, man. I never bought in, and even when I used to race motorcycles and stuff, I never even liked the Oakley goggles. I would get different brands. Oakley was always been like a kind of a pretentious brand to me, and I'm sure I'm going to get an email or a tweet from somebody pissing somebody off. But to me, it always has been. It's just been a pretentious brand. It's been, maybe that's what. Maybe this is a deep-seated thing that I'm just uncovering.
You're pretentious.
I just hate Oakley.
You were never cool enough to wear Oakleys. And Murph... Now, I only had one pair of Oakleys, I think I got them when I was like a sophomore. I thought I was the coolest kid in the world and stuff, But it wasn't enough to have Oakleys. You had to have a certain accessory with your Oakleys, Murph. Now, we haven't discussed this, but it'd be pretty cool if you know what accessory I'm talking about to go with your glasses. You know what they were called?
There's a little thing to go around the back, so in case you're on the boat and they fall off your
What were they called?
I don't know what that thing.
Chums. Don't you remember Chums? Yeah. They were called Chums.
You know why I think that's stupid? Because you know who had the cool, and I know he didn't call them Chums, whatever the crap he said. But Al Davis, dude, he had, you want to talk about a pimp.
Al Davis had Chums.
That wasn't, whatever that was, man. He always had that bling, dude, coming from his glasses. That was always nice, dude. The white Raider jumpsuit and the diamond chain. Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Now, if you had that on your Oakleys, I'd have respect.
No. Those were a little fancy. I'm talking about old school Chums where they had they were kind of thick. They almost made your ears stick out and stuff, But Chums, man, they were old school, freaking cool. I'll post a link.
Did you have that with your Raider Zumba pants?
No, Murph. I had that with my big old Oakland Raider coat that I had, though, in 7th grade. Let's see. Retweet.
I'm going to post up a picture of you wearing your Oakland Raiders Zumba pants.
Those were I think my zero gravity pants, Murph.
Oh, zero gravity pants. My bad.
Yeah. But man, you had to have Chums with your Oakleys and stuff, Otherwise, it wasn't complete, It wasn't complete unless you had your Chums rocking. All right, Murph. Moving forward. Every week, Murph, we do a topic that is near and dear to our hearts. It's near and dear to our hearts, Murph, because much like being a Raider, these topics that we talk about in this particular segment here, it almost goes back farther than being a Raider, right? But I remember as a kid learning about Raiders before learning about, being Italian. However, they kind of go hand in hand, right? I identify as being a Raider, and I identify as being Italian. So every week, Murph, we try to pay a little homage to our culture. We try to talk a little bit about what's going on the particular day that we're doing our little podcast here. Because, Murph, if we're not giving respect to the family, what are we doing, right? So, Murph, who do you got this week for the whopping historical fact of the week?
We're long persecuted people. Us as Christians, us as Italians, and of course, the past 10 years as Raider fans. No one is more persecuted than us Raider fans. We have been the laughing stock of football. And as Italians, it goes back even further than that those 10 years. And you're right. There's always the judgment. That's always and especially here recently, it's Jersey Shore, right? Like all us Italian Americans on Jersey Shore. And I actually just I liked that show a little bit when it first came out. But but after that, though, but that's not Italian Americans, right? Our Italian Americans are good, upstanding, productive members of society. And there's 3 we are going to highlight tonight for a whopping historical fact of the week. Last week was pretty slim pickings. We had to go to a random photo shoot on a Beatles album to pull Dion DiMucci out of the picture.
You pulled it off well, though.
Thank you. But this week, there is an abundance of Italians born on this day. There's an abundance of Italians that passed away, unfortunately, on this day. There's a lot of Italian history going on this day. So we're going to highlight 3 of those folks, 2 inside the world of sports and 1 outside the world of sports. First and foremost, there's a popular commercials going around right now. It's something about not being any more popular than an astronaut. That if there's an astronaut in the house, that's the guy. And the last Italian astronaut in space was Paolo Angelo Nespoli, born this day in Milan, April 6, 1957. In 2007, he traveled into space aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery as a Michelin specialist. In December of 2010, twice he traveled into space aboard the Soyuz spacecraft as an expedition flight engineer. So, on this day, we recognize born Paolo Nespoli, the last Italian in space. Also an Italian going into now transitioning into the world of sports. Man, do you want to talk about big time? When you're at the pinnacle of your sport, you're winning a championship, could be a World Series, could be a Super Bowl, or in individual sports, it could be a gold medal. And Maurizio da Milano, born April
How do you say
6th,
that name again, Murph?
Maurizio da Milano.
Okay.
All right. Born this day, April 6th, in, this is brutal, Scarnafigi, Italy. Anyways, not only is this guy an Olympic athlete, you want to talk about peak athleticism? When you think about the most challenging, grueling sporting events in the Olympics or otherwise, race walking is way up there.
Wrestling,
whatever, marathon running, triathlons, Ironman, chumps. They're all chumps. The race walkers. Maurizio da Milano, 1980 Olympic Games in Moscow. Gold medal winner, 84 and 88. Followed it up with a couple of bronzes. Born this day, April 6th. Congratulations, Maurizio. And then last but not least, we're going to go into the world of baseball. A little more familiar ground for us. We're going to talk about William Lou Merloni. Born this day, April 6, 1971. He's now an American radio personality, but formerly Major League Baseball player, and clearly he was most famous, not for playing with the Boston Red Sox from 1998 to 2002, where they picked up a World Series, not playing with the Boston Red Sox and San Diego Padres in 2003, not playing for the Cleveland Indians in 2004, not playing for the Los Angeles Angels, we hate them anyways, in 2005, and not returning to the Cleveland Indians in 2006? No. Sweet Lou Merlone was most famous for his time spent with the Sacramento River Cats. That's right, the AAA affiliate for the Oakland Athletics. In the 2007 season, Merlone was chosen as the most valuable player in the 2007 Bricktown Showdown, leading the River Cats over the Richmond Braves by a final score of 7-1. He was voted Best Defensive Player and Best Teammate for the 2007 season. Merlone contributed a home run and 4 RBIs in the game. And before that game, Lou Merlone was chosen as the River Cats team captain. So on this day, Lou Merlone, we salute you. Born April 6th, 1971.
Appreciate it, Murph. Appreciate it. Thank you for your efforting into digging up those historical facts week after week. That is all you. I gave you that task, Murph, for one reason only. As I am clearly a lot more Italian than you based upon my parents and my parents' parents, it is up to you.
Hey, your parents' parents, my parents' parents.
Not my mom's.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I got it on both sides, Murph.
You do.
You got it on one side.
I got it on one
So it's up to you week after week to prove your Dego worthiness by digging up these stories, and you've done a fantastic job.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the compliment. It's actually the most enjoyable part of my show research every week. It's kind of cool. I get to learn something.
There you go. There you go. This is common knowledge for us regular Italians. All right, we're coming back. Coming back, Murph. We're going to talk about the expectations for the Oakland A's and the Weekly Sad Sack Award winner, Murph. What'd you say?
I said without Lou Merlone, pretty dismal. We need to get him back.
Need to get Merlone. All right, you're listening to the Sports Degos.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
How many times has this happened to you? You have a bass and you're trying to find an exciting new way to prepare it for the dinner table. You can scale the bass, remove the bass, tail, head, and bones, and serve the fish as you would any other fish dinner. But why bother now that you can use Ronco's amazing new kitchen tool, the Super Bass-O-Matic 13? Yes, fish eaters, the days of troublesome scaling, cutting, gutting are over because Super Bass-O-Matic 13 is the tool that lets you use the bass with no fish, no waste, and without scaling, cutting, or gutting. Here's how it works. Catch a bass, remove the hook, and drop the bass. That's right, the whole bass into the Super Bass-O-Matic 13. Now, just adjust the control dial so that the bass is blended just the way you like it. Yes, it's that simple.
Wow, that's terrific bass.
We've got bass here. Fast, easy, ready to port. Super Bass-O-Matic 13 comes with 10 interchangeable rotors, a 9-month guarantee, and a booklet. 1,001 ways to harness your bass. Super Bass-O-Matic 13 works great on sunfish, perch, sole, and other small aquatic creatures. That's Super Bass-O-Matic 13. It's clean, simple, and after 5 or 10 fish, it gets to be quite a rush. Super Bass-O-Matic 13. You're never gonna have to scale, cut, or gut again. Just send $49.95 to the Sports Degos, care of the Dego Dungeon, Oakland, California.
All right, welcome back to the Sports Degos. I hope you're all out there fastly ordering your Bass-O-Matics. Nothing better than fish blended into a nice smoothie. I don't know how smooth it would get, Murph. You know, Murph, it's no mystery. We're from the Bay Area, born and raised in San Jose, have, for whatever reason, migrated to backwoods civilizations, if you will. Both of us have. You out in Tennessee and I'm over here in Oregon. And but you know, we've maintained our sports roots. And I think that's very important to maintain your sports roots. Now, I've become fans of the Oregon State Beavers. You're fans of the Middle State or Middle Tennessee over there, you know. And, you know, I watch the Blazers from time to time and stuff. You know, I'm kind of more of a Blazer fan than a Warriors fan. But for the most part, Murph, we've stayed true to the Raiders, to the Warriors, to the Sharks, and to the Oakland A's, Murph. And Murph, I want to start talking about Oakland A's baseball on this show. Maybe we'll do it the last segment. We'll do the Raiders, the second segment, and we'll do the A's during the fourth segment. But Murph, I'm loving it. I got the MLB package. I'll send you the code after the show so you can start watching them. The A's started out this year. Did you watch? Did you check out the first game? 3 strikeouts to bring in the first game. They lost 2 and they won 4. What are your thoughts on them so far?
Well, to answer your question, no. Unfortunately, I've been traveling so much. I was out of town when baseball season kicked off on Monday, and so I didn't have a chance to watch any of the games yet. But I have been keeping up with at least a win-loss, and glad to see that the A's have moved into 4-2 after dropping a couple to the Seattle Mariners. No big surprise that they dropped the game to Felix Hernandez. I mean, he's arguably the best pitcher in baseball right now. So I think that's kind of to be expected. I mean, it was, you always want to get a win on opening day, but when you're going against a guy like that, I mean, I hate to use the term, it is what it is, but I mean, that's what else you could expect. I mean, so that wasn't a big shocker that the A's dropped that one. So then we move on to this series in Houston, where they picked up another win tonight to move to 4-2. And, Houston is probably going to end up being the worst team in all of Major League Baseball this year. So the A's better sweep them. I mean, that's not a team that they need to lose a game to. Baseball's a marathon, and we got a long, long, long way to go. But you want to see glimpses of greatness, and you don't want to lose games to a team like the Houston Astros early on. So I think the season so far has been what we as fans kind of expected, considering the way that the A's finished strong last year. And I think this is going to be a lot more to come out of this team. It wouldn't surprise me to see this team win, between 90 and 100 games this year. Some of the predictions are a little lower based on the level of competition within the division. But, we've heard a lot of times about how good the Rangers were supposed to be, or about how good the Angels were supposed to be, and all the money they spend. And look what happens. They typically fall short of expectations. So assuming that that trend will continue, I think that our A's are going to be in a good shot to compete. And even not in the division, there's always the wild card in baseball now. So that's a good thing. And, here's what's really encouraging to me, and I think we talked about this a little bit a few shows ago.
Introducing the Acura RLX.
Whoa.
Oh,
go ahead.
Why you got to bust Acura commercials on me? But one of the things that's most encouraging to me is that, in this Moneyball era, outside of, the Hudson, Mulder, Zito, time when we had a lot of pop in the lineup with with Giambi and oh my gosh, and Tejada. We had some pop in the lineup back during the early 2000s, but really it's been lack of offensive output is what's held this team back, and that they've always had good pitching. Whether it's been guys like Blevins and Balfour, or, McCarthy, or speaking of sports injuries, we should have brought that one up. McCarthy getting his head caved in, for crying out loud. But anyways, Dallas Braden has had, there's been a lot of great pitching moments for this A's team for a while now. But what they haven't had is they haven't had that offensive firepower. Well, now when you look at what the A's have, they do have good pitching. They have great starting pitching, actually, and now they got some pop in the lineup. And when you look at our outfield alone, Cespedes, Crisp, and Josh Reddick, dude, I'm not going to say they're the best outfield in baseball, but there's not a ton
they're pretty
of
solid.
others. That's pretty darn good, man. I mean, that's way up there as far as, speed and power goes. And, Crisp is playing phenomenal here to start off the year. So I'm encouraged, man. I think that we got a lot of good things to look forward to out of our A's this year. And I look forward to paying attention to them, as per usual. I'm going to try to thank you for the willingness to share your code. I'm going to try to, I usually don't see a ton of obviously being in Tennessee. I don't get a ton of chances to watch them in the regular season. We have our own little baseball season going on. And in fact, one of my teams is named the A's. And so we have our own baseball season. So I don't get a ton of time, especially being out here in the West Coast games. They get played late. And so I'm going to try to keep up with the actual games with watching them a little more than I have in the past, but definitely every day. I mean, during baseball season, first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is look for my email notification on the game from the night before, and get a chance to at least look at the box score and check them out. So yeah, I think we got a lot of good things to look forward to as A's fans this year. What do you think?
I think it started out kind of bleak. I was listening, the first pitch and the first couple games, and I've been primarily listening. I live up about an hour south of Portland, so I couldn't watch the games. I was in the blackout area, so I couldn't watch the Seattle games, so I was listening, and I was able to watch the last two against Houston. The first two games, it looked bleak. There was absolutely no bats. Whether you want to attribute that to Felix, and his great pitching, or the A's, kind of being just maybe a little groggy coming out of spring training. I know they put up a lot of runs in spring training. However, after going the first two games, only scoring one run, losing 2-0, right off the bat against King Felix, and then losing again to the Mariners 7-1, they've now rattled off, 16 plus 12 is 28 runs in the last four games. They beat Seattle 6-2 on Wednesday the 3rd. They beat them again on the 4th, 8-2. They beat the Astros on Friday, 8-3, and they beat them again today, 6-3. So they've now rattled off 4 straight wins, and they're putting up an average of 7 runs a game. That's pretty darn good, Murph. Even if you have your pitcher as a 5 ERA or something like that, putting up an average of 7 runs per game, you're not going to lose a lot of games putting up that. Now, is it kind of utopian to expect them to put up 7 runs a game for the rest of the baseball season? Yeah, probably ain't going to happen. There's going to be some slumps. But like you said, last year was definitely their pitching. This year, if our pitching can continue, probably going to take a little step back. Maybe it might be as good as it was. But if our bats can pick up, oh man, A's could be solid. A's could be solid. And with the Astros coming into the division, that's a guaranteed, another 12 victories, The Astros aren't very good. I'm looking at their schedule right here, trying to see how many times they play them. This is only through until July anyway, so that doesn't work. But I think it's hopeful. You have an extra team in there, but I don't think that team is gonna have that big a difference. I think the Astros are gonna provide more wins for the Angels, for the A's, for the Tigers, for everybody else than not the Tigers, I'm sorry, but the Rangers. They're going to provide more wins than anything else. So I'm liking it. I'm liking it. I'm liking the beard of Reddick. It's kind of nice.
Beard is beast, dude.
That's a good beard. Crisp had a huge game today. There's a couple guys who are starting to step up. I forget his name real quick. I'm going to try to go find it, but go ahead.
Oh, I'm mentioning the beard and the long hair. I love that because that really harkens back to, to Bay Area baseball and the A's, especially, the renegade years of the 70s and guys like, Joe Rudy. And, I liked it. Even in the early 2000s with guys like Giambi, Giambi was all tatted out and had his long hair and everything. And I love that vibe. That's, to me, that's what the A's are about. I mentioned earlier, one of the teams I coach is the A's, and my oldest son plays on that team, and he's growing his hair out, and he just got his new uniforms, and he's wearing his A's hat and had his long hair, and it just I'm like, that's perfect, man. That's West Coast baseball right there. That's awesome. And I showed him some pictures of some of the old A's players from back in the 70s, and he's got the biggest kick out of it. Like, that's just, I don't know, I love that look, the aesthetic of that team. But and then to go back to your point from a competitive standpoint on the field, they got one more game against Houston. Then they got 2 tough series coming up. They got one against the Angels and they got one against Detroit. And I'll be curious to see how they do. Obviously we finished well last year against the Angels and even really against Detroit in that series. Verlander was just so dominant that he's really the only thing that kept the A's from moving on even to the next round of the playoffs. But anyway, so those 2 series, the Angels and then Detroit, the next 2, and then they got a series against Houston. So there's another chance for 3 more wins there, and then Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is again going to have phenomenal pitching as they always have with David Price. But also, really, they're about 4 deep in that rotation now. So I'll be curious to see how they do there. That's a lot of good pitching between the Angels, the Tigers, and then Tampa Bay. 3 out of the next 4 series for the A's. So as we mentioned, it's the baseball season is a marathon, but this could be some tests for the A's early on, and we should be able to get a good idea of maybe a direction of where this team is going to go.
Chris Young, Murph, is the name that was escaping me early on, but so far he's done pretty darn good in his last 3 games today, yesterday, and Thursday, and then Wednesday. He's hitting about 300, 333, 1 double, 1 homer, but he scored. He has 1 hit in each game, but he scored each time he's got on bases. So he's a smart ball player. He's not getting picked off. He's not stealing when he shouldn't and stuff. He has 2 strikeouts, 2 walks, 1 RBI, a home run, and a double. I think this is the guy I'm going to be watching closely throughout the year, Chris Young. And also, Murph, they got the biggest guy they've ever had, Fryman. This guy is 6'7". 6'7", playing first base. Can you have a better guy playing first base than a dude who's 6'7"? Talk about, the position that needs to stretch, that needs to be able to, catch every ball coming to him and stuff. That's pretty impressive. 6'7". He got thrown out trying to score, I think, from first a couple games ago. I was one of the ones I was listening to, but I was talking to some guy on Twitter. He said he runs gracefully for a 6'7" man, Murph. So I don't know if he has a basketball career or what, but that'll be interesting to see what he does. So far, he's only hitting about 250, but man, 6'7", it's phenomenal.
Well, that reminds me of Dave Kingman, who had a long history in Major League Baseball. Started off with the Giants, finished off with the Oakland A's from the 84 through 86 season. But old King Kong, man, Kingman Kong was 6'6". So that's pretty cool. That's another harken back to another piece of Oakland A's history.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about the A's each week, kind of do a recap of their week. Sitting at 4-2 right now, and they're actually, Murph,
in first place.
In the AL West, Murph. First place. Keeping it in the AL West, Murph, is our Sad Sack of the week. And let's play some pretty music to welcome in the Sad Sack.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Sad Sack.
It's really unfair. It's my team. It's my quarterback.
Sad Sack.
I'll be lying if I said that it didn't bother me.
Sad Sack.
Sometimes emotions is what makes a person.
Sad Sack.
Promised Mess I wouldn't do this. But, as I said, there comes a time when
Sad Sack.
Oh, I just changed my shirt. My chicken!
Sad Sack.
I'm not a sad sack, am I?
You?
Sad Sack.
Go.
Sonny, there's a lot of things that qualify you for a sad sack. I don't mean you in particular, or maybe I do. No, I'm just kidding. One of the things that we talk about is whining, sadness, just an overall disposition of not understanding what's going on around you and being willing to get vocal about it and to kind of complain. So this week's sad sack is a complainer. It's a guy that we've rooted against before and will continue to root against him even though he plays for another team because that team is still in the AL West. And I'm talking about Josh Hamilton, former Texas Ranger and current Los Angeles Angel. And the reason that Josh Hamilton gets the Sad Sack Award from me this week is that he got booed they opened up with a return to. What's that? Another Acura commercial? They opened up with a series against the Rangers, and as I mentioned, he plays for the Angels now. And in player introductions, he got booed, and I mean booed. I mean they threw out all the insults, and they threw out all the all the boo birds came out, and he didn't like it, and he took an opportunity even earlier in the week before that to call Dallas a football town and to say that they weren't a good baseball city. So not only are you not playing for the team anymore, you insult them, and now you're coming back playing for a team that's competing with your team for the division. So of course he got booed. And so what I don't understand, and the reason that I chose him for the sad sack, was that he says in his post-game interview, well, yeah, they booed me, and, I'm coming in here with a competitive team, and I guess that's to be understood. But then at the same breath, he says, but I don't think I deserve it. I think that the things that we did here while I was here were worthy enough for me to not get booed and to not get that kind of a negative reaction. So Josh Hamilton, this week, you get a sad sack from us for being the whiner, being the complainer, and for being surprised that by going and signing with a team that plays within your own division, when you return back home 6 months later, that the fans boo you. Big surprise. Sad sack.
About those statements now.
Stick to them. Stick to them. When they, if they pack the house for the next, 20 or 30 years, then I might say it's a baseball town. But I grew up a Cowboys fan since I was 4 years old, so I know what the deal is. But, I put it out plainly in the interview earlier today. It's 2008, I run down the tunnel, and it's September, and it's a Friday night, and we're getting 20,000 and 10,000 people are there. And I say, well, where's everybody at? And they say Friday night football.
Hey, sad sack. Seriously? You are the sad sack of the week with Murph and Sonny.
Yeah, Murph, while he's always been, on the enemy's team, if you will, I like his story. It's respectable.
Redemption story.
It's redemption. We love redemption, but shut your mouth. What are you rambling on for? What are you getting in the weeds for with that? Talk to a lawyer. Talk to Rolando McClain's lawyer, and know when to shut your mouth. You know what I'm saying? He almost qualifies for shut your mouth too, but sad sack.
So if Rolando McClain is the starting middle linebacker for the Kansas City Chiefs, is you think that he's going to be surprised if he gets booed when they come into Oakland? Come on.
Oh, gosh. That's the game I want to go to. All right, Murph, we've come to that special time where we need to end the show. You can check us out on the website, thesportsdegos.com. You can listen live when the show is going on there. You can check out all of our archives through iTunes, through Stitcher. You can also listen to the archives through our pop-out player on the website. Check out the blogs on the website as well. There's even a chat box on the bottom. Drop us a line. Let us know how you like the show. Follow us on Twitter at thesportsdegos. We're also on Spreaker. You can sign up for Spreaker, get updates through Facebook and stuff like that. Murph, any last words?
Well, I was under the impression that we still had one more segment to go. I thought we were going to cover Air Coryell and the San Diego Chargers and their prominence in the passing game in the 70s and 80s.
Oh, that's right. We were going to get to, gosh.
I did like 2 hours of show prep, man. I got all these notes, and I got my Dan Fouts autographed picture here on my desk. Yeah. I got my Lance Allworth jersey on. What gives?
I'm actually going to a Denver Broncos booster club right now. It's with a bunch of farm animals, and we're going to talk a lot about how we have empathy with the Denver Broncos. So I will be unable to discuss the Chargers with you, as I have to go to a farm animal hosted Denver Broncos booster club up here in Oregon. So hopefully next week we'll be able to.
While you're boosting farm animals, I'll continue to compile my my Chargers notes. Maybe we can do it in a later show.
Yes, maybe we can do a later show. All right, Murph, appreciate you joining us. Check us out at sportsdegos.com, at the Sportsdegos on Twitter. Until then, take over the world.
We're taking